Okay, and this question comes from Hobo Frodo, and he says, what is the place of music within the realm of psychology, and by extension, the biopsychosocial model? Is music simply a means by which the unconscious can push out messages? And if so, to what degree are these messages subject to being warped by the individuals they speak through, or are interpreted by?
Wow, that's a huge question, really. Psychology broadly is a bigger, if you like, or certainly a wider topic than psychotherapy as such. There's been an awful lot of research on music by anthropologists as well, and its significance in ancient cultures. I would recommend that you look that up for a wider base. With respect to a clinical view, which is more what Paul and I will be into, we have definitely used music very effectively and powerfully clinically, often in enactments, as we call them anyway, which are a very specific kind of psychodrama, but it's more powerful than conventional psychodrama, where we would use it to access a state and bring it forward very, very powerfully. For example, we would have an environment which would be controlled for lighting and for access, and within that environment, if you can imagine it being dark and subdued, and very, very private, we would have the person that we're going to be working with, perhaps with a chaperone too, a family member, and then a whole team of therapists, and also an array of, we'll call them props, which would be items that could be used in a dramatic sense or in an emotive sense to trigger various things, and we would have selected these from the case history of the person. And then we would use music. We wouldn't tell the person that we were going to use music, but we would have probably picked up, and this is based on real cases, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We would pick up a song that we knew that was, or a piece of music that was significant for someone. And then one of the tables that would be in there would have a cloth over it, and underneath there would be something to play the music through. Back in the day, for example, it would be a ghetto blaster. And one of my functions would be that when the person was distracted by one of the other team of therapists, and I'll explain that in a better context in a moment, I would duck under the table, and at the appropriate moment, when I knew, because one of our team of therapists would be ready to drop the stimulus word, I would press play and the music would come on, and very often you would get an immediate and very, very powerful deepening of emotion and involvement in the enactment process. The purpose of the enactment is to really create a living dream for someone. And you would have a team of therapists. These were people that we would know and trust, and we'd work with, and mostly we'd train them personally, so we knew they would have access to the case study. They would never meet the person going through the enactment again after this meeting. The person who was going through the enactment process would have been briefed in advance that this kind of thing would happen. They would of course consent to it. And the purpose, as I say, would be to access the unconscious in a living, dynamic way. So the team of therapists would all be briefed on the case history, the background, and would know what to do. It would involve wearing masks, sometimes cover themselves in cloth and that, of different colours, and they would animate a part of that person's case study and history, be different figures from their background or just from their unconscious, and then we would bring the music in, and it was stunningly effective at changing a state which was healing in and of itself. So that's an example of where we would use it. Paul, would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly say, Steve, it's a great way of bypassing consciousness, really, and going straight to the deeper parts of the brain that are connected with deep emotion or affect. People would have very, very little resistance to that, and obviously it helped, I think, too, that they didn't know it was going to happen.
No.
But a very, very powerful way of eliciting emotion, particularly for people who we probably think of as being alexithymic, as being without emotion, or people who felt they had difficulty in actually accessing emotion in themselves.
Yeah, with alexithymia specifically meaning...
Well,
the not having the words
that's right.
Which in a conscious sense means the articulation of emotion through words.
Yes, through words.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So it's a great way of bypassing those kinds of difficulties, shall we say. The other thing that sprang to mind too, Steve, was obviously our work in the film industry and how you write and to some extent how I draw or paint, the music often comes first.
It does, yes.
Doesn't it?
It does.
And, you take a piece of music and use it to inspire your writing, just as I would prefer personally, if I was drawing or painting, to have some kind of music in the background. And it does definitely affect the way you create.
That's a very good point. On the subject of the film industry, we work with an Oscar-winning, I won't name him, but we work with an Oscar-winning Hollywood director who never uses music in his films. I'll say that he's Australian, but I won't go any further than that. He's been around a while. He didn't want music.
Yeah.
In the end, we didn't want him because he didn't want music. It was as simple as that. The affect which is generated by emotion is extremely powerful. We work with a lot of musicians as well, professional musicians, some of them international chart level musicians, others more niche orientated, but the power of emotion to bring about creativity and engagement is huge, and we're hoping to be interviewing some of these guys too on
very soon. Very soon.
In fact, James is working hard on this right now, bringing a new platform to bear for our work, and we will be interviewing some of these guys from the film industry there, and we'll remember this question and bring that into focus for you guys.
That would be a great question to ask them.
It would indeed.
Perfect.
It would indeed. In fact, you reminded me the other day, I think, I kind of nodded off through sheer exertion, and one of these guys' music was playing through YouTube, and I had a strange active imagination kind of experience where an entire script, not just the words, actually, it was more the affect and the imagery just emerged spontaneously in my mind in connection to the power of this particular piece of music. And I just had it all worked out in the couple of minutes that it took for that experience to impact me, because I was half asleep. Therefore my unconscious and no doubt the deeper emotional parts of my brain were engaged more receptively without the noise from the ego. It came through very, very powerfully, and I've now got another trilogy basically mapped out in script form, ready to go, purely because I was in that crossover state of consciousness when I experienced that.
Well, that particular piece of music, there was a kind of chatter, if you listen closely, going on in the background, and I think I said to you, it sounds like the voice of the ancestors. And that suggestion clearly took in a very productive way as it happens, because like you say, suddenly you had enough material to write another 3 scripts. So,
there's a bass beat running through it, which you have to kind of be almost half asleep to detect. And the vocalisations were they were Etruscan, weren't they? Well, not Etruscan. It was ancient Gaulish.
Well, they sing in ancient Gaulish, this particular group, don't they?
They do.
Old Gaulish,
and it's that resonance with that. And the fact that they are so plugged into the collective unconscious in a Jungian sense.
They are. They
live it. They live it authentically. And it's as if they'd sprung out of the ground, and when they came out, because they're younger than us, but when they came out of the ground, they kind of took that with them, and it's in their consciousness and in their creativity, and they live it authentically. When we met them, we got on so well with them as creatives. They're not into Jung. They don't have to be. They're living it without knowing anything about it. But that was the bridge of understanding between us, and that's why we're collaborating with them. So that's another example of where music can be really powerful.
Is it all right to say the name of the band and maybe put the song in there as well? Put it into the video.
It's ELUVEITIE.
It is.
Catarix. I'm just going straight into it. It's Catarix. That's CAT, and it's VRIX. The V being like a U in Latin, and it's an incredibly powerful thing. In fact, the guy singing, Krigel Glansman, and the young lady Fabi will be in some of our film projects. Their cast are purely on the power of their creativity and their performance and their humanity. As living human beings, they're so engaged with their craft, and are so of the members of the band so incredible.
All hugely talented.
They're all hugely talented. One of them, I won't name him yet. I'm hoping to interview him as well, has been on his own self-generated opus of individuation and self-analysis for years. And we really admire what he's done. He's done it without any external guidance at all. He's relied upon his own resources from within and his own creativity. And he's been through a hell of a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Hugely admirable. They're all so very, very talented as a band. Remarkable people. And we'd love to present them on our channel.
Dare I be a bit controversial here?
I'm sure you will.
I don't do it very often, but I'm thinking about, we have had some people say that they're not actually keen on our music. Or, yeah, which are in and of itself
that we use for this channel.
For this channel, yes, which is interesting. In a way, well, it shows how personal music is as well, doesn't it? To some extent. But I just thought it might be useful to mention it here, in so much as, even if it's only to sort of open up discussion about why that might be.
Well, it's very personal, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
As you say, it's that comes from a film project.
It does, yeah.
That and a whole raft of other things, and they were created.
Do you mean the intro music?
Yes,
the intro
sorry,
music.
James, yes, the intro music. Yeah.
That was put together by a couple of unknown local musicians. You don't hear the full track; you only hear some of it, and there are other tracks as well.
There are, yeah.
The impact that music has had on other people in the film industry might surprise you. It's blown them away. It is so closely integrated with the particular scripts that are connected to that. The scene within that context, it has massive emotional impact. And that's very often the way with music. It does have to fit the situation, and you have to have that emotional engagement. So if people understood the context of it, and there's only a few people who've commented negatively, lots of people have commented positively, to be fair.
I think it's very iconic.
It is iconic. It is iconic. Yeah. So the context for the trilogy of film scripts, I can tell you, Hollywood directors like it, and that includes art directors as well as actual physical directors, and a lot of people who've worked on some of the biggest named films of the past 20 to 25 years, household name movies that would surprise you, probably. Have approved of this music in a way they've not done with other people who are experienced film writers. These two guys are just like you guys. They're just ordinary guys.
And that's why it's there, really, because it's about people's creativity and the blending of creativity, isn't it? With different artists, contributing different things.
Yeah, we very much believe in that. We very much believe in collaboration.
We do, yeah.
At a creative level. And what I did is I gave them the scripts and I said, you just write something. You just write it from your heart. And I'm sure I have intuitive confidence that it will be good if you do that. And they did.
Yeah.
And the same with one of the artists that we work with, who's produced an awful lot of artwork along with Pauline for the film projects. Again, I just gave them carte blanche and said, you just deliver it from your soul. Bring it out and it will be good. I know it will be good. And it was good, it was brilliant. And again, that's had a massive impact on the film industry, behind the scenes. So this collaboration, when people bottom out, they get deep down, all the surface structure differences in individual personalities disappear. You start to get down to the core of something which motivates you all, which is why I trust that process very, very much. So everything in its context. That's so important, whether it's psychological theory or it's music or creativity or anything else. You'll never, obviously, please everybody.
No.
That's impossible. But emotional connection, if you can get it, that's decisive in everything in life, and that includes therapy. If you can get the right emotional connection, not just a discharge, like your average counsellor looks for, like, an ab reaction or a catharsis, but something that moves someone deep from their brainstem through their instinct right down to the genome. That's transformational. That is truly numinous, as Pauline often says about such experiences. You can interpret that as being spiritual, but it's certainly deep within the very core of your material being. It's at that level that creativity comes from in all of its forms, and that's what we look for when we use music, whether it's in psychotherapy or it's creatively.
And there's partly really the justification for having it there, because it's about valuing someone's creativity, and as you rightly say, we never interfere in that process.
No, never.
It would be wrong to do so.
Never. never. We let the creatives create without interference. So, if you like, it's the spirit of the original pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, but we hope without the contention that eventually caused those guys to separate. On the basis of their instincts, which were pushing in all sorts of directions, a very healthy sense, but nevertheless not in a collaborative sense. So collaboration is great, particularly between creatives, and you access the unconscious very, very quickly when you do that. You get off the surface, you get away from theory. It doesn't matter whether it's Jung, Freud, Adler, Carl Rogers, Fritz Perls and Gestalt, whether it's psychosynthesis, any. You get away from all of that and you get down to the very core of producing something new in the world that people can relate to emotionally and instinctively. And when that's a team effort, that's such a transcendent experience. An amazing thing.
The Personal Myth Ultimate Handbook is now available for pre-order. For anyone who has a yearning deep in their very genome to become who they truly feel they should be, this guide is utterly indispensable. Pick up your copy today and make 2021 the year you truly begin to become yourself.